All right, here we go. The final phase of care. This is like the final frontier. This is wellness phase. So by this point, you've had a patient, they've had a problem, they've had a symptom, you've hopefully identified the problem, you've worked together with the patient to remove the things that have kept the body from healing, you provided the stimulus and the nutrition, the body has healed, you have now achieved health, however you've defined that. And I hope you've taken some time to really think about that, because it really is one of the most defining definitions that you will have in your practice. Hopefully you have that definition kind of nailed down, and you really need that definition nailed down enough, because if you don't really know what that is, you don't really know if that patient should be in wellness phase or not, right? Um, and so hopefully you do. Hopefully you know what that is for your practice, and the patient has now reached the state of health as you've defined it, and now you're ready to maintain and build upon that process. So this is now the final frontier. This is life. This is a forever process where, just like maintaining anything, whether it's your house or your car or your clothes or whatever, um, maintaining your health takes work, it takes effort, and it's extremely rewarding. Um, and and if you don't do it, then you go have to start all over again, which is no fun either. So, to be perfectly honest, I am not the best at wellness care. I am very much of a go in and fix a problem kind of person. I take great joy into getting a person here. Um, my passion is not for people here. My passion, when a person has got to this point, generally I get them to work with other people to help maintain and work from this point on. And that doesn't mean that the way that I approach that is right. I have some wonderful friends who are phenomenal at this. Their whole careers have been based upon wellness care, and they're much better at it. But the reality is, every one of you will have a slightly different passion, a slightly different focus, a slightly different part of healthcare that resonates with you. Um, and you know, probably you can't do it all. You probably can't do it all. So you kind of have to find the pieces that fit you best. Um, but for the patient's benefit, um, wellness care is important. I mean, just like you wouldn't, change the tires in your car and then expect it to drive, 250,000 miles more and never have to do anything to it again. Um, the body's the same way. You've gone through a tremendous amount of effort to accomplish some goals to bring the patient to a state of health. Now you want that patient to maintain it and build on it, and keep problems from happening. So that's what this phase is about, and it's every bit as important as every other phase, and it's every bit as rewarding as everybody other phase. It's just different. So, again, what are the goals of this phase? First of all, to prevent problems and be proactive. So, what's that mean for me? For me, that's at least a yearly checkup. At least once a year, I'm going to have that patient come back. We're going to go through the whole nutrition testing process. We're going to look at their nervous system. We're going to look at their heart. We're going to look at their blood, and we're going to ultrasound them. And I mean, the whole gamut of things we're going to go through again. And we're just going to see. And we're going to see if they're actually maintaining, or if they're improving, or if they are degrading, right? Now, time and age tend to move us in the wrong direction when it comes to health. So, honestly, the older you are, the harder you have to work at maintaining health. And that's a shame, but it is the truth. So, basically, that once a year meeting is sort of the wake up moment to say, hey, a year ago I was here and now I'm at the same place, I'm at a better place, or I'm at a worse place. And if we're a worse place, we've got to change it so that the next year you're not in an even worse place, and so forth and so on. All right. Um, that's the first part of wellness for me. We're going to be proactive, through like ultrasounding stuff. If they have thyroid cyst, or if they have cysts on their spleen, or if they have, an enlarged kidney or too small of a kidney, whatever findings we have, we're going to kind of keep an eye on them, make sure nothing crazy is changing, make sure they're stable. All the things that are unique to that patient, we're going to take a look at and make sure that we are being proactive. And if there's a problem developing, we're on top of it, and hopefully we can fix it at a very conservative nutritional type of a level and not have to do anything too crazy. So like I say, yearly exams are the norm in my office. Every nutrition patient at least once a year gets a full exam, period. And then more if they need it, right? If they have some other problems and you're concerned, do it twice a year, whatever you got to do to take care of that patient. But for me, once a year is kind of my standard. Everybody needs maintenance supplements. I hate to say that. I really hate to say that. I don't like that. And that's probably not 100% true. I mean, if you live and you get organic food, and the food comes from good soil, and you're not getting a ton of toxic exposure, the reality is almost everybody in this country isn't getting that. They just aren't. So because of that, everybody's going to need some maintenance. That's just kind of the bottom line. What does maintenance look like? So that really depends on the patient. By this point, you kind of know where that person's weak spots are. If that person tends to get, develop nutritional deficiencies first that affect their adrenals or affect their livers or whatever, then you're going to support that. You're probably going to be supporting them with some kind of trace mineral support, because we're probably not getting that from the foods. You're probably going to support them with some type of omega-3s, because they're probably not getting that from their diet. And then you're probably going to be supporting them with some type of organ support depending on their weak spots. So most patients in my office, they're going to be on 2 to 4 supplements forever. And those are kind of tailored to them. They're based on their body's needs. And I know that they do better when they take those. And now I don't have an agenda. I don't try to sell a particular product or anything. I just, like I said, by this point, I've had at least 6 months with this patient. I kind of know where their weak spots are. I want to make sure that those weak spots don't create problems later on. Now, this is where I really start encouraging patients about exercise. So when they're in a fine-tuning phase, they're usually sick, they're miserable. They're not really of a mindset to really get into working out. When they're in a healing phase, a lot of their body's resources are going into healing, like their body is healing. And so to go into a really aggressive workout plan takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work from the body. And so I don't really push them so much in the healing phase to working out really hard because their body's using energy to do other things. So I want them exercising, I want them doing stuff, but I'm not really pushing an exercise routine. Wellness, I am pushing an exercise routine. I want that person to do at least 3 days a week of cardiovascular exercise at a minimum of 30 minutes each visit. And then I want them to do at least 1 or 2 days a week of strength training, period. And then for a lot of patients, I'll add to that flexibility training and other things. This is where exercise becomes very strongly emphasized. And I want them to have goals. I want them to have competitions. I want them to have a lot of patients I'll put in contact with a personal trainer. I'll put in contact with somebody who can give them accountability. Get them playing pickleball, get them playing tennis, get them out, get them doing stuff athletically, because their body is healed. To stay healthy, they need to exercise. We all need to exercise. And so the more you can get them focused on some type of sport or athletic endeavor, that will build on what you've done. Because if you're doing athlete, you don't want to go, eat a gallon of Haagen-Dazs right before you go run a 10 miler. The exercise will encourage you to stick with the diet and to keep working on improving your health. So extremely important. I want the patient to start focusing on athletic endeavors. I don't care what that is. That can be running, it can be biking, it can be swimming, it can be tennis, it can be pickleball, it can be kettlebells, it can be CrossFit. I don't care. I don't care what it is. whatever gets that patient excited, I want them to be excited. But again, at least 3 days a week of cardio, at least 1 day a week of strength training, and then add to that whatever you think the patient needs. Um, and if they are into a sport, great. Look at that sport. Will that sport provide the cardio for them? If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, you got to add it to them. You got to make sure they get the exercise built into their lifestyle at this point. And if you can do that, that exercise will make the nutritional side for you way easier. And basically, what that means, instead of treating diabetes, you're treating a sprained ankle, or instead of treating, fatty liver, you're training a tennis elbow, and that's okay. Everybody's going to have some problems. They're going to have some maintenance. I'd way rather be treating tennis elbow than diabetes. So, exercise is king right here. So the next thing in wellness phase you want to think about is outcome measures. What are you going to use in this phase? So cardiovascular fitness is probably one of, if not the most important, the ability to use oxygen well. Now we know that oxygen use is still going to create free radicals, but it's a whole lot less difficult than if you don't have oxygen and you're doing everything anaerobically. So we want to facilitate cardiovascular fitness. Now, what does that look like? You can look at that in terms of resting heart rate. You have blood pressure. You can do various aerobic tests. There's a step test where you go and you have the patient, go up and down on a step for 2 minutes, and then you let them rest, and their heart rate should drop 50 beats a minute after a minute of rest. That's kind of normal for good cardiovascular fitness. Do some research, figure out what you would consider appropriate. Whether you integrate it or not, that's up to you. But just some ideas during wellness phase that you can get people um, shifted in their mindset from I have fibromyalgia, I have multiple sclerosis, I have whatever, to I want to I want to compete in the next 5K. I want to compete in the next CrossFit game. I want to, you start changing their focus from my problem to using my body, competing with the body, doing things with their body, and that really changes the whole mindset. So cardiovascular fitness can be really good in integrating this process. Part of your research projects this week is going to figure out some different tests that you might integrate, how you want to do it. Like I say, for me, these are more set up by the trainers and the people that I refer to at this point. I don't do a lot of that in my office, and it's not that I shouldn't. It's absolutely critically important to patients' long-term health care. It's just something that I how to say this. If I took the time to do this for a patient, I couldn't treat another patient who wasn't at this point. And so it becomes a balancing act. You only have so much time to work on. So I feel for me, in my practice, my time is better suited getting people to this point. But when they're at this point, it doesn't mean they don't need care. They absolutely need care. They need that accountability. But I feel way more comfortable at that point taking that patient and getting them involved with a trainer, or getting them involved with some type of athletic club or something of that nature, and letting that endeavor take the wellness part to a different level. And I'll still keep an eye on them. They'll still be my patient, but that'll be more in terms of the yearly exam, making sure their supplements are good, that kind of thing. So again, I encourage you wholeheartedly, set up the wellness care as part of your practice. Don't farm it out. Don't do what I'm doing, because if you can keep that patient healthy, you're doing them so much better than if they fall off the boat at this time and then they don't stay with it, and then 2 years later they're coming back to you with a whole new problem. I've had that happen many times, and I hate it. It's a horrible feeling. We got to kind of start over again. Um, so I very much encourage you, from the very beginning, think about this phase and how you're going to do it and how you're going to do it well. And that, I think, also draws a really good uh, mentality into patients, where they say, hey, yeah, I'm really sick now, but I want to be with that group that's, you know, running or doing whatever it is they do. Strength goals. This is another thing that you can look at any age. You can get strength minimums that are just sort of required. If they don't have strength in certain areas, then they do extra strength training to build that. You can have minimum goals for there. You can have maximum goals for there. You can tailor it to age. Strength is incredibly important. And there's a ton to say for every aspect of health, from sugar metabolism to cardiovascular health to inflammation, you name it. So having some strength goals, having some strength minimums can be very useful in the wellness space. Flexibility is probably the most overlooked aspect in the wellness space, particularly for guys. Guys, as a general rule, in my experience, they don't really like flexibility, but it's really important. You know, you got some folks, some guys that you know, they need a telescope to see their toes, you know, let alone trying to bend over and touch them. So flexibility can be really important. Don't neglect it. I can honestly say, after many years of practice, that if you can maintain flexibility, generally, particularly for men, they'll be in much less pain, have much less pain, much less injuries through life. So flexibility is really important. Routine detox plans, very important. So I try to do at least 2 detoxes every year. You know, you can tailor that to the patient. Doesn't mean, you know, you don't have to do a detox, you know, because you're sick. You can do it preventatively, which is kind of the goal here. So for some patients, that's you know, a 1 week a year fast. For some patients, that's a couple of 21-day cleanses a year. For some patients, that's you know, doing a 30-day juice plan where they're just doing like fresh vegetable juice for a month. There's lots of ways to do it, but a routine detox plan is really important. You can also use body fat measurement. InBody, that didn't really come across too well on the slide, but InBody is a device that you can get for the office that will measure body fat through electrical current. I have a lot of friends who utilize that type of technology. Like I said, that's really useful. You got a person who's on wellness, they're feeling good, you know, but you start to see their body fat percentage, you know, go up 2 or 3 or 4% every year. That should be an eye-opening process. That can be the encouragement that patient needs to go out and get on a walking plan and do some detoxes and keep themselves up. So lots of ways to do this. Like I say, I'm giving this because it is part of my office. I emphasize this from day one. It's just in the actual day-to-day routine for me in treating patients. This isn't the biggest part of what I do. My part in this is the yearly exams, making sure that their supplements, you know, stay on track, dealing with the regular ups and downs of colds and that kind of stuff, and kicking them in the rear when they're not doing something athletic. So, you know, that can be pointing them to a sport, pointing them to a trainer, pointing them to a gym, pointing them to a CrossFit club, whatever it is, getting them actively involved away from, gosh, I feel sick, towards, gosh, I want to go out and hike in the mountains or ride a mountain bike or whatever. Getting them to change that focus is a big part of wellness care. And again, it just sort of, I mean, if you kind of look at wellness or health, you kind of have this spectrum. If you can kind of imagine a line of healthy, right? Wherever you define healthy, and below that line, they're symptomatic. And above that line, they're healthier, right? You want them to live their life above that line, right? You want them to live their life healthier. And that means doing things that promote the healthier aspects, which is exercise, which is athletic activity, which is you know, pushing their bodies in healthy ways. And that's you know, you don't see high-end athletes, you know, generally struggling with high blood pressure and diabetes and that kind of stuff. They're living their life on the healthier side. Now, there are some folks who will go too far with that. There always are. There's always your outliers. You know, you got the you know, one of the docs I really appreciate. You know, he's in his mid 70s and he's still running triathlons in a regular basis. And I don't know. You know, that may be pushing the limit a little bit too much. On the other hand, I believe he's 76 this year, and he's still doing a triathlon at least a couple times a year. So that's pretty good. I would certainly rather be treating him than the 30-year-old who couldn't run a mile without passing out. I would rather than be on the athletic side. So this week, I want you to think about um, getting the patient to live on the other side of that healthy line. In your mind's eye, think, okay, healthy. That means this to me. Below that line is symptoms, whatever that is. Above that line is healthier. That's what wellness is about, trying to get the patient as far above that line as possible so they live their life healthier as much as possible. So think about that. Think about some real practical ways that you can do that in your office. I encourage you not to be like me. Have wellness as a part of your daily routine with patients. Focus on wellness. Spend some of your time there. Um, it's rewarding, and when you have that goal in mind, I think you'll be a lot better provider, a lot better doctor. So, talk to you later.